thousands of years. This is not a new practice of seeing these stones as having some sort of power. I mean, it almost sounds on the surface almost laughable or ridiculous, but yet
the crystal itself is more of a, instead of it having power, it becomes more of a contact point for something to. So today we're going to be talking about a thing known as the New Age movement, or New Age philosophy, New Age religion, New Age belief, however you want to characterize it up. So in this, we're going to have to look at the very, how would you say, stupid, or some of the things that Christians allow into their life. For instance, I'm during the week a lot, I do real estate photography and real estate drone video, things like that. So I see a lot of people's personal homes, like their personal effects in their house. Well, something that I have noticed here recently is that a massive majority, now understand, we are in East Texas, which means Bible Belt, which means, people claim Christianity, people go to church, people, like, this is a part of the Christian facade. Like, we think because we're in East Texas that we are God's people. Listen to me. I say this because, like, if you go to California, apparently, from what I hear, if you go to church over there, you will be ostracized, criticized, and your faith will be put to the test. When over here, everybody does it. Over there, like, you only go to church because you're an actual Christian, because of the persecution or the solitude you'll have to go through because you decided to say that you were going to go to church and you were going to profess God, because it's a very liberal state. And so those types of things. And then we have this, you probably heard of this church called Bethel. They put out a lot of good, like, worship music. Like, we sing a lot of them at our church. I don't think the devil's in their music. I really do. I think God can use anything to usher in the presence. He could just show up in the middle of being quiet. But it seems that some of their theology is way out there, and apparently in their school of theology that they have at Bethel Church, a lot of, there's a book that came out, I can't remember the name of the book, but the book came out and it was written, I think, by the secretary or somebody at the college or at the church, from the church, that they wouldn't come out and say a yay or nay. It was a really weird and vague situation where they wouldn't actually say yes or no or yay or nay. They were just very ambiguous about it and wouldn't actually make a statement on it, except for one was saying, I think the lead pastor there at Bethel said that he didn't write the book or something like that. But I think when you dig a little deeper, he actually wrote a foreword in the book. And I think this book was very new agey and twisted up in things like that. And it became a big controversy in their, I don't want to say religion, they claim Christianity, but in their church and in the whole Christian sphere, because they were saying a lot of things that lined up with New Age thinking. So if you don't know what New Age is, it's what are the beliefs as far as that goes. And this is what's so confusing, because, and this is what I feel the devil does. The devil gets so close to the truth that nobody can really understand or decipher what is true or what is not. And so people who are seasoned in the faith could hear a message from a church that is very close in what they believe or what they know to be true from the word, but is a little bit off the beaten path because it mixes in New Age. Like, you just speak it and it has to happen. Yes, there's power in the words, but you'll begin to see in all this stuff how New Age is kind of mixed in very well in some of these teachings. And it can get really confusing to the person who doesn't know God, who doesn't know the scripture, who doesn't understand really what the Bible is saying, what the context is. So we have to be very vigilant as believers of the gospel. We have to make sure that we are bringing truth and real truth to the table. Not our truth, not somebody else's truth. It's not our standard, but it is God's standards and God's alone. We cannot manipulate, twist, or make it fit into the mold that we want it to fit in. It is not ours to manipulate. It is God's. So Christians hold what sometimes are characterized as a New Age belief, including belief in reincarnation, astrology. Have you ever said before to somebody, or somebody asked you what's your sign? To me, it's completely stupid. But things like this are gateways, and a lot of times they seem very, very insignificant or very innocent, and they're not. They're actually doorways for the enemy to infiltrate those who are unassuming. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand what they're saying, but they are allowing themselves to be vulnerable physically and open themselves up mentally and emotionally and spiritually to things that, if you knew what the blunt truth was of what you were allowing in or around or inviting you in, you wouldn't want anything to do with it. So let's continue to read. Reincarnation, astrology, physics, which, physics is literally, that's not really a belief, I don't think. Then again, this is Google. So the presence of spiritual energy. Now that is a big thing. Apparently, from what I've read, from what I've heard, Bethel Church talks like that. Like the energy. And it's very, without trying to be like funny, it's earthy. Like God is the wind. God is the trees. God is the grass. God is not. He created them. He is outside of them. God is not us. And that's the whole catch, or the whole trick of the New Age movement, is that it's wanting us to be the center of the thing. Like, it's wanting us to be in control. It's wanting us to have the power of God, which, if you remember and read the beginning of the Bible, that was the fall of man in the first place. So that's why it is so, you need to run from this. You don't need to entertain it. You don't need to try to tiptoe around it. It is a very serious thing. Like, for instance, spiritual energy in physical objects, like mountains or trees. Many Americans who are religiously unaffiliated also have these beliefs. So then again, even people who say they don't have a religion, or they say they feel, now here we go right here. This is what we're going to get into today. They feel that they're a part of something. They know there's something. They feel the energy. They're very, like, they dress like hippies. This is the truth. They're, I guess, very earthy people is all I know. It's the only way I know how to describe it. And so let's read this. Example of a New Age movement is this: crystal healings, meditation. This says yoga. Now, some of y'all are going to be mad. Some of y'all are going to be like, that's not. I'm just reading the page. To me, yoga is like stretching and doing exercise moves. I don't know. Meditation, you can meditate on the Lord. Matter of fact, you're supposed to. So meditation, to me, like I said, this is a Google reading. This is not facts. There's no telling what this, it doesn't even, maybe that's what that is right there. New Age movement, religion examples, blah, blah, blah. So any website can put a .com behind it. Any person can put a .com and write whatever they want. So just take it with a grain of salt. Tarot cards, tarot readings. I have seen videos of ministers who are claiming the gospel out of one side of their mouth and then having tarot readings in their church. No, that's not God at all. And then this even puts in belief in UFOs. I mean, if you believe in UFOs, I don't think you're New Age and you're trying to unearth mysteries. This is kind of far-fetched. This is ridiculous. Like, I actually have a woman in my church that she believes with all of her heart. She has fun with it. She goes and she looks for Bigfoot. And she's not a young lady. She is seasoned in the Lord. She's well studied in the Bible. But she has fun. She gets excited about it. She thinks it's just a cool thing to go and just venture out and look for Bigfoot. I don't think she's going to hell or she's wrapped up in New Age because she believes something like that, or if she thinks UFOs. UFOs does not mean aliens. I think that's what they're meaning here. But UFO is unidentified flying object. Okay? Aliens, I have no clue. I don't have an answer. That's not what this episode's about. But it can get really weird really fast. So astrology, meditation, integrated into Western culture, and it's pretty popular today. So we're going to look at a couple of videos. And in these videos, we're going to have we're just going to kind of follow along. And this woman was she was a witch. So before we go any further, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and so you can see every time we put out new videos. I would greatly appreciate it. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe and go over to our YouTube channel so you can watch when we live stream. All right, so let's get into this.
About crystals with you, and we'll get a little bit into herbs as well, but crystals have become this massive phenomenon. Young people are using them, and we'll talk about those numbers in a bit, but can you tell us a little bit about what this process, or this practice rather, of using crystals entails?
This is so new age, in depth, using crystals for protection, for to ward off evil, for enlightenment, to bring about psychic awareness, to place on chakras, thinking you're going to open them up and use the energy from the crystals. This whole thing is relying on energy with crystals. I had a crystal heart rose quartz, a pendant made for myself because I believed it was going to draw love. I was also manifesting at the time my spouse, my future spouse. But people are going to crystals all the time for protection. They believe it's going to protect them from negativity, from illness, all sorts of things, Billy. It's really scary, and it's big.
It is scary, and it's interesting because this history apparently goes back hundreds and thousands of years. This is not a new practice of seeing these stones as having some sort of power. I mean, it almost sounds on the surface almost laughable or ridiculous, but yet many people, this is a very real practice for them. You talked about your own.
So what do you guys think? So have you guys ever even dabbled with crystals or ever known anybody that has? Like, I was raised in a church, like a Pentecostal church, where extreme, what we call today legalism. You dress a certain way, you do a certain thing because you're supposed to, and that's what makes you holy. You do wear, you don't wear certain things. You say and you do. Like, there's a whole thing behind it. But this crystal thing I never came in contact with until I was older, and I would see people or friends wear them on their little necklace thing. They would wear them on their hands, like in little rings, or they would have them in their cars. They would have them on their shelves at their houses. And like, when you're seeing something like that, it looks like one of those rocks that's from like the caves, where you can buy it in the little gift shop. And that's what I thought it always was, until I dug a little bit deeper and realized that there's actually something that is really beyond what I thought to this. Let's continue.
Practice there, and I don't know a lot about the different stones, but I know rose quartz is one, obviously, for creating relationships, and there are a number of other ones that are out there that people use. Let me throw the number out at you, because we were given some statistics by Springtide Research that 44% of young people, 44% between the ages of 13 and 25, are using crystals and herbs. What is your reaction to that statistic?
Wow. I'm heartbroken by that to start, because it just shows how deceptive the devil is, number one, and how he's not even hiding. these kids are so exposed to witchcraft these days, and they're really looking for something. They're really looking to feel better. They're really looking for identity. They're looking for love. They're looking for all the things that only God can do. But they're not hearing about God. They're hearing about crystals. And it's glamorous and it's trendy and it's spiritually dangerous. It's witchcraft, Billy. It's witchcraft, because you are invoking, once you go to that crystal and you think you're going to manifest something from that, whether it's health, protection, increase your happiness, increase your wealth, what have you, self-confidence, you are invoking demons, because the demons are the ones that have the power. I have to tell you, the crystal is a rock that God created. It can't do any of those things for you.
Well,
so what she's kind of saying is like that the crystal itself is more of a, instead of it having power, it becomes more of a contact point for something to latch onto or to work through or something like that. Like a lot of times in the Bible, objects would have some sort of meaning and some sort of tie to something spiritual. Like for the biggest example that probably everyone has heard of in some form or fashion is like the Ark of the Covenant. Like it carried the presence of the Lord. Then you have the tent of meetings, and you would have these tents that God told Moses to build, and that's where God came down. And then God came down to Moses in the upper clouds of the mountain, and it was just all these different things where something did hold on to something. And I think that maybe why, this is just my kind of unprofessional opinion, is that I think the reason we're not supposed to mess with these things is because it is a kind of what God did or what God used and how he did something. So like the devil does, it's a perversion of actually what it was meant to be, or a perversion of actually how things were supposed to be. And so that's why I think it's a big no-no, and it's like warned against, because we need to be more on guard than that and not allow ourselves to be opened up to spiritual things that we don't really understand. No matter how innocent you think that the things like that are, they're really not innocent when you really get down to what they actually mean. So this woman is not just a person who has an opinion or has studied crystals or studied the Bible. She is an ex-psychic. She understands the evil. She understands the manipulation of the crystals and the witchcraft part of it and demonic. Let's continue.
And let's go there, because what you just said is incredibly important about what is going on here, because there are people who are going to say, well, I use crystals and they're wonderful. They're changing my life. They're the rose quartz is bringing me love and positive relationships. And they're going to see that their use of these stones, right, that is what is doing this. But what you're saying is that by putting their faith in that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, by putting their faith in those stones and trying to use them in that way, they're actually attracting evil in that. And that's where they're seeing these quote unquote positive benefits that aren't necessarily positive.
That's right. 100%. You hit the nail on the head. They're making a choice willingly to put their faith and trust in God's creation rather than the creator, rather than God who made those beautiful rocks. And he did make them, and they're beautiful. And that's where it ends. So when you start using them for divination, for witchcraft, and you may not realize that that's what you're doing, but that's what it is. You are invoking demons, and the demons are the ones who are manipulating circumstances, who are planting ideas. And some of these things become almost self-fulfilling, because the demons really can manipulate things around you. And you'll pay attention to those patterns or to those circumstances and make things happen too.
Yeah. And, this other piece of this puzzle, because when Springtide asked young people, they sort of clumped together this use of crystals and then, herbs. And there are a lot of different herbs out there apparently for different things. And it's an interesting conversation because, and I want to separate this out, and feel free to maybe speak to this when I'm done and correct me or add or agree. But, it's one thing to use essential oils or to use herbs to heal things that God's given us. We take them because we take vitamins, let's say, that have certain things in them, medicinally or for health. It's another thing to rely on these herbs in a magical sense. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Absolutely. I would say the biggest one that stands out to me, of course, is sage. And that is so trendy. I hate to use that word, but it's true. Sage is actually, burning sage is called smudging, and it was a Native American cultural practice. They believed that they were purifying their space around them, getting rid of negative energy. And of course, that trickles into, clearing your space of demons. As a former psychic medium, that was a part of my ritual before doing readings. We would sage the room. I got hired to smudge people's homes, and I would be channeling. And the idea, again, is that the sage will protect you from demons or from this negative energy. But the truth of the matter is that demons don't care about sage. They're not afraid of sage. They're only afraid of Jesus Christ. So I argue that even going to sage or any other herb, if you will, and you're putting, again, your faith and trust in these items, these created things for your protection, for your spiritual safety, you're invoking, you're attracting. I mean, I'm sure they're laughing. Those demons are laughing at you. You're not protecting.
So what do you guys think? You guys think that the demons are scared of sage? I don't know. I have no clue. Because it came from somewhere, it wasn't just they didn't just randomly start it. It had to come from somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know how it got its start, but I mean, it had to come from somewhere. It wasn't just a random thing. So I don't know. It's pretty crazy that it's a common thing across all. Now maybe somebody does it because somebody else does it, but it originated somewhere.